What's up, everyone? Jeremy Gerard from Mythic Customs here with one of my short customizing tutorial videos. Today's video, we're going to talk about fodder. So fodder are the random pieces that you use to put together custom figures. And it's one of the most important things, I believe, of doing some creative customs is having a lot of fodder available to you. You can find it in a lot of different ways. And the reality is sometimes you may be tempted to get rid of some of your fodder. You may see the bins building up and you may say, you know what, I'm never going to use this. I'm going to get rid of it. From personal experience, I will tell you that the quickest way to figure out how to use a piece of fodder is to sell it, because the minute that you get rid of it, you suddenly have this light bulb moment where you realize that that was the perfect piece that you needed. I've had parts in my fodder bins for literally years in some cases before I found the right use for them. I actually have a couple examples of a few customs I completed recently that fall into that exact category. One of them, I had a piece that it's been in my bin for a couple years now, and I knew exactly what I wanted to use it for. So I had set it aside for a very specific reason. Another example I have to show is a part that I've had in the bin for a really, really long time. Again, a couple years, never knew how I was going to use it. And then everything just kind of fell into the right place and it became the perfect part to execute what I wanted to do. So, okay. Fodder. How do you get fodder? There's a bunch of different ways. And again, the definition of fodder is just random pieces that you have put aside to use in your customs. These could be body parts. This could be weapons. These are pieces from Mythic Legions. These are pieces from other lines completely. You're going to get them in a couple different ways. Let's talk about Mythic Legions for a minute. So I've got the new Vorthag figure here. This is one of the figures that's shipping as part of the Erethyr wave. If you get this figure, and it's an awesome figure, I definitely encourage you to pick one up if you haven't already. The value of this figure is incredible. You open this one figure up, and he not only comes with 3 different weapons. Now, a lot of Mythic Legions figures come with a variety of weapons, usually at least 3. This particular figure has like a really crazy shield. It's got a warhammer, and it's got this big, big sword here. You could technically outfit the character with all 3. You could put maybe the sword, across the strap on his back, have him hold the hammer, have him hold the shield. If you're not going to have him wielding all 3 weapons, you have extras. As you start collecting Mythic Legions, you're going to start to build up a lot of different weapons. If you look online, you look on eBay or whatever, you can see that people are paying $10, $15, $20 just for extra heads or extra weapons sometimes. Fight the urge to sell them. Put them aside because they will come in helpful later. They could be useful later. This particular figure also has 2 different heads. The bearded Vorthag head as well as the standard kind of helmeted orc head. He's got 2 sets of hands, one kind of open, one gripping, and he's got 2 sets of feet, the bear orc feet and some armored feet. So you can only use 1 set of hands and 1 set of feet on this figure. So in one head for that matter. So right out of the box, even if you use all 3 weapons, you've got an extra head, an extra set of hands, and an extra set of feet. This is an extreme example. You get more in this package than you do in most Mythic Legions figures. But the reality is, as you start collecting, you are going to start building up pieces. Even something as simple as most figures come with 2 pieces of shoulder armor. You may decide that you like how a character looks without the shoulder armor. That means you're going to have those pieces extra. Put them aside, start building up that fodder bin. Another thing that you can do is when you pick up lots of non-mythic figures to use for customizing, that is a great source of fodder. I've long talked about how much I love using the old Toy Biz Lord of the Rings line to customize with. I especially like buying those in large lots really, really cheaply, or at least cheaply per figure when it breaks down, because it's really helpful to do that. There have been times where I've been looking for a very specific Lord of the Ring piece, and when I try to find that figure loose on, say, eBay, it's going to cost me $15, $20, $25 just for that one figure. However, I may be able to find a lot of figures that well, it's going to cost me a lot more than that $20, $25. It may cost me $100, $150, $200 to get that lot. But there's so many pieces in it that the per figure price goes down to maybe like $3 a figure. You got to look for those deals, build up those fodder bins. If you're not, don't be worried that I don't know what I'm going to use this for right now. Think the long game when you're customizing. That's really important. I'm going to come back to that. So another way you can grab some cool stuff is literally to go to toy shows and look under the tables. I love doing this. That is what happened with this figure I'm going to show right now. This is a figure I completed recently, and it is, let's see, my kind of skeleton, Spartan looking character, I guess is what you'd call him. This is a character, this uses a custom 3D printed head and 3D printed sword from Wolf King Customs. The body on this, it really started as a Malleus figure. I swapped out the lower arms and lower legs with those from a Hagnon. So I wanted the Malleus figure comes with a really spiky orc-like armor. I wanted the more clean armor. I had some Hagnon pieces in my fodder bins, as luck would have it. So I gave those a bit of a spray paint job, did some dry brushing on them to match them to the torso armor you see here. And that's the key piece I want to point out. That torso armor comes from a NECA Clash of the Titans Perseus figure. Okay, this was not a super articulated figure. Definitely, I've seen a couple people use it with Mythic Legions. I don't think it fits in great, but its parts, its component pieces are wonderful. I actually found this figure at the ToyCon New Jersey show about 2 years ago. Underneath a dealer's table, it was $3 is what I paid for it. I completely have broken that figure apart. I've used the lower legs on a custom. I've used the lower arms on a custom. I've used the weapons on a custom. It has just been a wonderful contributor of fodder parts. But I still had this torso. Now, this particular torso armor, it's like a soft rubbery piece. I pulled it off the existing figure, and I had it in my fodder bins for a really long time. Recently, I was looking at this head and this sword from Wolf King Customs, and I said, you know what'd be fun? I'm going to make an undead, Spartan type character. What other body pieces can I use? And when I saw this torso armor, because obviously it's meant to be molded to look like muscles, I liked that juxtaposition with that contrast, I guess, with the skeletal limbs. So that is what I used here. And it's honestly, like I said, it's a rubbery piece that ended up slipping right over the Malleus body. And then I used that as the key piece that informed the color choices that I would make for the rest of this particular figure. But that is an example right here, and I'm holding this guy right here. That's an example of having a piece that I had set aside for a couple years, not knowing exactly how I would use it, but just figuring that one day it would become the perfect piece. So that's a little lesson that I'll share with you is if you've got pieces, you don't know how you're going to use them, store them aside. You will find a use down the road. I mentioned a custom that I had a specific piece for that I had put aside for years, knowing how I was going to use it. Let me show you that one now, because that's a slightly different story than the one I just told. And that is this one here, which is kind of my tribute to the Masters of the Universe classic figure of Fisto. So this is one that I'm certainly not unique in this. I know a lot of people planned out this style custom when they saw that Magnus head from the Aether Wave. That Magnus head is not only a wonderful sculpture, but it does bear a resemblance to the character of Fisto. So a lot of people wanted to create a custom like this. This is honestly largely a kit bash. This uses, some bare limbs that I had in my fodder bins. Once again, I'm sure you're seeing a theme to this, right? Those were in my fodder bin. I had them put aside. The lower leg armor and the lower arm armor, at least on the left-hand side, are from the Vorthag figure. The waist piece and the torso are from Vorthag. Again, that head is from Magnus. The headgear is from a Chrono. That's the only paint I have on this. But really the key piece that we're looking at here is that center picture, and that's the fist. So the Fisto character, obviously he gets his name from his large armored fist. That is a piece that came off an old World of Warcraft figure. And it was something that I had cannibalized for some other parts. It came with a really cool sword weapon that I used in a custom. I broke that hand off, and interestingly, it has a little port on it that really makes it fit pretty nice and snug on the lower arm for a Mythic Legions figure. And as soon as I saw it, I said, I'm not sure how I'm going to use this, but it's a cool armored fist. It's a little oversized. And shortly after I pulled it apart, that's when the Aether Wave was introduced, and I played the long game. I said, I know I'm going to use this down the road for a Fisto character, a Fisto tribute. So I put this aside knowing what I was going to do with it. You can have fun sometimes just going through your fodder bins as they build out, as you have all these pieces. It's great fun to just sit down and go through those bins and almost kind of treat it like Legos, right? I remember when I was a kid, I used to love just dumping out Legos and just building. Not building to a set of instructions to create what was on the box, but just creating for the simple joy of creating. That is a lot of fun to do with Mythic Legions as well. I got this character here, which I've shown in the past. This is my Wasteland Ravager, and I made this when the Mythic Legions Wasteland Wave was introduced. I really expected that they were going to use this Hagnon head in that series kind of as a zombie kind of, scorched earth type character like I used it here. When they didn't, I said, you know what, I'm going to do that myself. I'm going to create kind of my scorched earth zombie-like character for the Wasteland. These are all Mythic parts, 3 weapons. I kind of built it as if I was designing an actual Mythic Legions figure. But the mismatched nature of the design was something that was totally fun to do just by digging into the fodder bin. So you can totally do that. Now, talking about building out the fodder bin, I'm talking about leaving stuff in there for a while. The other thing you can do is, like I did with the Fisto, is buy parts that you really like, but you don't know how you're going to necessarily use yet, or you're going to use them down the road. You're playing, again, that long game. And the reason I point that out is, there's a lot of customizers, and there's no right or wrong way. It's whatever works for you. But there's a lot of customizers that work on one custom at a time. They have a plan. They say, okay, I'm going to create this type of character, and they acquire the parts for that custom that they have in mind. That's never been how I work. I tend to be working on 4, 5, 6, 10 different customs at a time, all in different states of completion. Some of them, they're progressing naturally along as I'm adding paint applications, adding pieces to them. Others, I have 1 or 2 pieces put aside. I'm waiting for other pieces, either that have been introduced but not released yet, or I don't know what I'm waiting for, but I know I've got a cool start, but I can't find the exact pieces to finish it yet. So I just put it aside, put it on the back burner, knowing I will get to it at some point. I suggest this because I think that with a lot of, like, say, the third-party customizers, or the third-party products, I should say, that are out there, from like Legion Shop, Wolf King Customs, Von Burt, Planetary Dog Toys, all these third-party providers that are out there, they're putting out these great parts. And sometimes you may see a part and say, well, I really love how that looks, but I don't have a body for it, or I don't know how I'm going to use it. I would suggest that there's value, if you can afford it, in picking up that part, because a lot of these providers, like Legion Shop, sells stuff all the time. We're open 24/7, so we're always restocking pieces. But a lot of the providers, that's not how they work. A lot of the providers put something up for sale, and then once that sale's done, it's a limited time sale. Once it's done, you don't know when or if it's going to be offered again. So there's always that fear of missing it, right? But I get not wanting to buy it, not wanting to buy this new dwarf head because you don't have a dwarf body. I've always, again, played the long game. I've bought a lot of pieces that I didn't know how I was going to use, but I really liked how it looked. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get this. I'm going to squirrel it away because I know at some point I'm going to find a use for it. So that is one thing I would suggest, is when you look at the parts that are being offered, think about maybe the figures you have on pre-order, the figures that are coming. Right now, Forest and Studios is doing a wonderful pre-order for Deluxe Legion Builders 1. Great wave, really affordable body parts that you can use for a lot of kinds of customs. They've got some Dwarf Bucks, Barbarian, Skeleton, covers a lot of different bases. So if you see parts from some of the third-party providers that you think would work good on those bodies, do not hesitate to buy one of those third-party parts, to pre-order one of those figures, and then put them aside. You know, put that head aside if you get it in the next few weeks, wait for that body to arrive. Or similarly, when you're planning out your pre-orders, especially for a wave like Deluxe Legion Builders, don't hesitate to buy some extras. You will find use for those bodies down the road. So those are some of my tips when it comes to fodder. Don't throw away pieces that you don't think you don't have a use for right now, especially as you start building out Mythic Legions figures and you have extra weapons and extra body parts and extra armor. Put them aside. They come in incredibly valuable, incredibly handy down the road when you're customizing. Look for cheap figures that have cool parts that you can cannibalize. Even if the figure themselves don't work with Mythic Legions, maybe their armor does, maybe their weapons do, maybe the capes they have do. Put those aside. Those are valuable down the road as well. Think long-term, think big picture. Buy things that you like, that you think you will use in the future, whether it's third-party heads, whether it's existing fodder figures, whether it's pre-order figures to give you base bodies to work with. Having those fodder bins, being able to go back there and just kind of play around and build something, being able to find that perfect piece on the custom that you have planned, or being able to go back there and just, like I said, play around, have fun with the fodder. That is what this hobby is all about. If you enjoy videos like this, let me know in the comments. Certainly give the video a like. And if you're not subscribed to the channel already, consider doing so. Definitely helps me out. Until next time, I can't wait to see what you make.